Trigger warning. This episode of Up and Atom contains discussion of intentional self-harm and mental health. All right, we're live, and I'm so pumped for this one. Today I've got Macario De Souza, gangster name just quietly, also known as Kid Mac, filmmaker, musician, storyteller, and someone who really inspires me from projects like Bra Boys, Fighting Fear, his own solo music, collaborations, your own production company, Hype Republic, to your latest project, In Pieces Together. Your new film, which comes out this month, mate, I am so happy to have you on. Thanks so much and welcome.
My pleasure, Adam. Thanks for having me, mate.
No worries, buddy. Let's get into it. So a big part of my podcast focuses on men's mental health, and your new film, In Pieces Together, is exactly that, which I loved, by the way, man. Very, very powerful. Watched it a few times now. But before we dive into that, I'd just love to know a bit about your story. How did this all start for you, film and music?
I was just a curious, creative kid. Born in a pretty tricky environment that was, low socioeconomic, and I guess we were always looking for ways to stick out and be seen and be heard. And for me, my outlet was always creativity. Came from immigrant Brazilian parents who migrated to Australia in the 70s, and we grew up in and around the Maroubra area, which was a blessing, by the coast and surf culture, and had a lot of awesome friends growing up that's still my best friends till this day. And yeah, we always just pushed each other to excel in whatever we did. And I always just enjoyed the idea of people, humans, stories, particularly stories that were of the underdog against the grain, which is just, it's what I knew, it's how I grew up. So I've always been fascinated by putting a spotlight on, I guess, people who deserve it, and essentially inspire other people and push the needle a little bit on society, that is not always the glossy crap that you might see on TV or hear on music. And just growing up in that 90s era was just MTV era. It was, I was big on hip hop and punk music, and I just wanted to do it all. So I tried it all, and I fell in love with music and film, and just forever kind of dived deeper into it. And it wasn't until I left high school that I did a fine arts degree and was able to dabble into a lot of different skill sets and subjects through that course that, just sort of grew from there. I was halfway through uni, and I started creating a small major project for uni, which was where I was from in Maroubra and the Bra Boys culture that I grew up in. That just escalated, it failed miserably at art school, but it became the catalyst and the pilot that got the film up, and just kept snowballing. Obviously Russell Crowe's involvement as a narrator on that film, to then releasing it after years of filming, becoming Australia's highest grossing documentary in history. It just really kicked off my career at a young age, which I'm super grateful for. And simultaneously I was in recording studios and getting into rapping and music, and just jamming on guitars and beat making. And the documentary again was another platform where I was able to write music for, and was able to sign a little record deal off the back of that. And I guess simultaneously paved two careers that I just loved, to and fro. And I'm 20 years down the track, and I'm still here, grey hairs, and still trying to make music and make films.
Awesome, man. What an answer and what a story. And just on a side note, I listened to some of your music recently. Mate, I love it. It's a very, very unique sound. Very cool.
Thanks, mate. Cheers.
Okay, so yeah, the Bra Boys, which you mentioned, based on the Abberton Brothers, Maroubra, Australia, where you were from. Again, I love that. Seen that so many times. I just watched it again recently on Netflix. So it represents brotherhood, but it's also raw, gritty, and it shows a tough culture, which you just said, which you captured so well in that movie. Like, it really kind of, you can feel it. How did how did being a man look like for you back then and the guys that you were around? Like you mentioned, like it was pretty, it was kind of tough growing up around there. Again, credit to you for stepping out of that and really pushing the boundaries and doing something, for yourself, which is amazing.
Yeah, look, it was a different era. It was, if anyone who has grown up in the surf culture understands it, it's very similar to the punk and the music kind of skateboard scene, particularly late 90s, early 2000s. Very, I would say just a little behind on culture, and it was a little toxic. You were judged by, how hard you could hit, how hard you could party, how many chicks you could pull. Um, and this was just normal for us, and I think it was normal for a lot of subcultures within Australia. You don't know any better when you're young, and all you want to do is fit in and and feel like you belong and you're a part of something. And that's what I did for a very long time. I was very blessed in that I had strong women in my life, in my two older sisters and my mum. Every time the very few times I came home to just pack bags, grab boards, and leave again, they was constantly just, giving me bits of wisdom and advice each step of the way that may not have listened to at the time, but that it did stick in my psyche. And over time, as you
Yeah,
mature, you start to make your own decisions, and your own morals come to fruition. And it's I just find that men and boys, and maybe I speak for myself, I don't want to offend anyone, but we're a little behind the eight ball when it comes to maturing, and it takes us a lot longer to just come around with certain things in life that probably women just get to much quicker than we do. And I think, you know, part of that, I guess, grit and rawness from the growing up on, that kind of street mentality, it gave me an edge and taught me a lot about life that I carry through till today, and brotherhood and loyalty has been such a big part of my life. And I carry that through to all my relationships, whether it's business, whether it's friends, particularly as the protector of my family. And now I have two daughters, so I'm surrounded by women again. I think it's important to just have, that edge and be able to confidently stand up for what you stand for. But like I said,
hmm
things change when you get older. And for me, when I had kids, particularly when I had two daughters back to back, it was you just change your point of view of life. And I just want the best for my girls. I've potentially mistreated girls as a teenager. I've seen how some shit can go down in that world, and I guess probably from those learnings, I can pass on what I feel will only benefit my girls, in a weird, strange world that we live in right now. So, yeah, look, big evolution. Wouldn't change a thing, but did I make mistakes? Certainly. Did I learn a lot? Yep, and that's why I'm the man I am today.
Yeah, man, bang on. I agree with you 100%. I've got a daughter as well, actually. She's 17. She keeps me busy, but she's just everything. She's my best friend, and it's amazing. And from the way I kind of grew up, very, very similar, and it makes you appreciate, and you learn from your mistakes and you can pass that on. And they just, gosh, she seems much more mature than I was at that age. Much
Yeah,
more,
that's
which
awesome.
is amazing. Yeah, I can see from your music videos that you like see music visually. Like I can tell that by looking at the videos. So it's really creative. Did you use music as an outlet back then? Do you think of maybe struggling to communicate it, but you could get pen to paper easier?
Yeah, I think just growing up, in a bit of a troubled area, and having a lot of alone time in bedrooms as a kid, you kind of like your escape is music. And for me also, it was movies. And a lot of the ideas of putting pen to paper stemmed from those early years of just dissecting my favorite artist lyrics and films and scenes. So I started to, yeah, almost use it as a bit of a way to express myself that probably I couldn't do otherwise, publicly or openly. I think over the years, even with my songwriting has matured somewhat. Obviously, content that you talk about is different when you're, 17, 18, running the streets with your boys versus when you're, in your 40s with two daughters and trying to pass on some wisdom subtly through your music. Yeah, definitely helped me.
hmm Yeah, awesome, mate. All right, sweet. So let's get into your new film, In Pieces Together. Firstly, how did you meet Blake Johnston?
So Blakey, I've known for a long time, but only kind of crossed paths a few brief moments. He was in the pro junior kind of circuit of surfing. A lot of my friends were as well, so a lot of mutual friends.
Oi, quick pause. If you're getting something out of these conversations, that's the whole point. Different people, different stories, but a reminder that we're not alone. So please hit subscribe, share with your mates, there's plenty more coming. And it makes me look a lot more professional than I am. Back into it.
Grew up in Cronulla, I grew up in Maroubra, so only down the road. But it wasn't until a couple of years ago, I'd heard about his world record, and the family had approached me about wanting to make a documentary about his world record feat. And that progressed into bigger conversations about, obviously the bigger topic of mental health and suicide, something the family has gone through, having lost their dad to suicide. And that just instantly resonated with me as far as subject matter goes. I've lost a lot of friends to suicide, and I've battled with depression and anxiety on and off for years, and I was interested to explore the topic myself for selfish reasons, really, just to see how other people manage, and maybe I could find some learnings out of it. It was a different type of project for me to take on, but I guess what really attracted me to the project was Blakey and his family. His wife Lauren, his kids, and Ben, his brother, particularly, were just beautiful souls. And now at my age, having gone through a lot of stressful projects with people you just wouldn't really spend time with otherwise, I have a big kind of ethos of just not working with pricks, and focusing on good projects with good people. And they were incredible people. The way that their point of view of the world, and they're the want to give back, and really kind of build a foundation for the next generation, really kind of struck a chord with me, and I was all in to tell their story.
Yeah, awesome, mate. I actually had Blakey on my podcast a while back, and again, same as you, just so grateful that there's men out there who are like, yeah, I'll get amongst that and help spread the message. So that was massive for me, and yeah, breaking the world record, like you said, 40 hours of surfing, insane. But his message does run deeper than that. He lost his dad to suicide, as you mentioned. And we're trying to change men's culture by looking after our well-being, speaking, community, connection, opening up to other men and supporting others. What did making this film teach you about grief and about men? I imagine it must have been pretty full on. And how did it make you feel?
Yeah, there's so many lessons I learnt from the making of this film. I think for me and how I grew up, I dealt with trauma, and just problems by drinking alcohol, drugs, partying, and it was never an addiction, but it certainly was binging, and it was just a band-aid fix that was a vicious cycle for years. Like I associated drinking with good times, associated drinking with bad times, and everything in between. So there was never moments of clarity or moments of just calmness and quietness to really kind of sit with your thoughts and start to deal with some of the stuff that's been bugging me for years. And what I learned with Blakey is that's something he could easily be doing, and I know he might have done it way back in the day, but for now he doesn't drink. He focuses on his fitness and his health, and makes sure that he is the best version of himself he can be, so that he can provide for his family. And I think what people don't realize is when people have trauma and people have baggage internally in their souls, it's not something you can easily just get rid of. Those kind of people have to work extra hard to just be on an even playing field with, I guess, the happiness rules of life. Just to be on a plateau kind of scenario where you get on with life with a smile on your face, and that to me takes bravery and courage, and that's what Blake does well. That's what a lot of his family members do well, and that's something that I took out of his book that I could easily implement. Where it might take a little bit hard work, early mornings to consistent training, better eating, minimize the booze, cut it out if you can. And it really helps, man. Like, it clears your head, it allows you that extra space to just think clearly, it gives you a bit more patience for your kids, and you just look at life differently, that, and amongst some of the managing coping mechanisms that some of the people we spoke to, I thought was incredible. Things like just journaling, connecting with nature. I've always struggled with meditating and breath work. My mind races too fast to try and just slow it down. Over time, you find your version of that. And I think the main thing for me was just the ability to just have, I've had best mates for 30 plus years, and some of the conversations I had with Blake during the making of this film went deeper than a lot of the relationships I've had anywhere in my life, because he allowed me to feel comfortable to open up and talk to him about anything, vice versa. There was no judgment. There was never a feeling of oversharing, and it really was always met with just ideas, like mates trade ideas, and like, have you thought of trying this and that, just that idea of communication and finding, Fighting Fear was a film we made that the tagline was, one good friend can change your life, and I think that's important. There's always having at least one person you can be your full self with. And having moved from Maroubra to Byron Bay over 5 years ago, I've lost a bit of that with my mates still living back in Sydney and having to reconnect with a new community. So when I come across people like Blake, I hold on to those kind of people, because I think it's what we need. We need good relationships. We need purpose, just to be the better version of ourselves.
Yeah, man, that's powerful. You made some really good points out. I just agree with everything you're saying, to be honest. And it is the small changes. It's I know what you're saying about breathing, and it's hard to change little habits if you've never done that before. It is actually hard to make that part of your day, even though it might only take 10 minutes. But once you kind of give it a go, and I've kind of noticed doing a bit of box breathing in my Pilates class, for example, and that takes 20 seconds. And even in that 20 seconds, wow, it's actually really calming. And you can just kind of carry that on, bit by bit. Yeah, I thought that was interesting. Also, what you said there was I relate to that as well. Sometimes I feel I don't mean to be disrespectful to any of my mates growing up, but yeah, you can grow up and have a friend or a bunch of your boys for 30 years. And I joined a men's group a couple of years ago and got surrounded by some of those guys over east, and it's you'll open up to them so much more than I ever have in all of those years growing up, because it just wasn't there. So that's the surface level stuff. But until you're open and you feel like you're comfortable in that environment, again, like you said, Blakey, perfect example. So powerful when you're wow, this is a different layer to things. You know what I mean? And you feel seen, and and that's what I try and encourage to other men as well. It's just the little steps to begin with. Like you said, some people find the changes a lot difficult than others, and we don't know what's going on in their head, but it's just the little things. And like you said, having one friend that you can be comfortable with, it's a massive start.
Yeah, totally. There's just little things, that when you grow up in one neighborhood with the same mates since you were 10 years old, you create this formula of how the dynamics of your relationships work, and it remains the same. It might be, for me and my mates, it was always banter. It was always bagging each other. It was always laughter was the priority by any means necessary. Some of us have, matured and are able to come together and talk deeply, but there's, growing up in Maroubra, there was always a group of older senior men, in their 60s or 70s plus, who would always do early morning swims and have early morning coffees. And I've seen it time and time again. It's helped me, just even joining different groups and breaking up your monotony of how you do things, and having a coffee with older people like that. The conversations do go a different direction. It's kind of nice to break it up, or go and see different groups of people, like you said, a men's group. You need to see what it's like with different dynamics and see what it does for you. And that's helped me a lot. I mingle with so many walks of life and groups of people, and I get a lot out of it because they're all super different, and it allows me to just pick, I guess, the bits that I think are valuable to my life, and cut off the bits that I think are no longer useful.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And just on that, in the film where you have you've got different men you're kind of interviewing and they're kind of saying their bits and giving their advice, which again I think was really powerful. It's good to hear different perspectives from different men. In the filmmaking biz, just as a little side note, how does that look? How does that look like exactly? Is that an invitation that you put out to people? Your team will kind of look for people, or you will just say whoever is keen, I want to hear from you. How does that
Yeah,
How do you spread the word of a film like that?
it's a combination of all those things, to be honest. Like I think the strength in how this film came to be was that the Johnston family are embedded in a charity community called In Pieces, and they have this tattoo puzzle concept that's already been happening. That has a big network, and they're all like-minded people. A lot of them have been impacted by suicide and are really strong advocates for mental health. So there was that pool of network to tap into first. Obviously, having been impacted myself, I reached out to a lot of friends who I knew were also impacted, and it's just a case-by-case basis, and it's a really kind of intimidating thing to do. You can't expect people to just, put their hand up and get on camera and speak about it. Like, a lot of people haven't dealt with their traumas or spoken publicly about it. So, we got a lot of no's, a lot of knockbacks, which I completely respected and understood. And I'm very grateful for those who were brave enough to get in front of camera and speak openly about it. And a lot of them that we spoke to were my friends, and some of the stuff that was talked about in that room in front of camera was stuff that we'd spoken about for the first time. So that was hard and strange, but also, in a way beautiful and part of the healing process and therapeutic in a way. It was very draining, I must admit, because often we did 5 to 6 interviews back to back in a day, 2 hours each interview, and there were tears from both sides of the camera, and I think it wasn't until like weeks later that it all kind of sunk in, where I had a break and I started thinking about some friends I've lost and just my own traumas, and it just all kicked in. It was quite overwhelming, but again, I was just leaned on conversations with Blakey and Ben, who were super helpful. And yeah, like, I just wanted to talk to other people to make this a community conversation, and that's what Blake was all about. It's not just him, it's everybody. And what's really interesting this week in particular is we're having all our film premieres for In Pieces together, one in Sydney tomorrow, Byron Bay Saturday, and everyone's flocking to come and see it. And the people that are coming are people who have been impacted by suicide, and they've never felt like they've had a public domain or platform to go and speak openly without being judged and feel like they're actually a part of something, and they're not ostracized or feeling like outcasts. And I think that's a beautiful thing, that this isn't a film about Blake, this isn't a film about me and film accolades or anything like that. It's something we've all come together and decided to do for the greater good of changing the conversation a little bit. And I think a testament to it is what's going to happen this week with these screenings, the hundreds of DMs I'm getting from young men, maybe on the edge or in a dark place, and just feeling like this was an invitation for people to open up. So that's a win for us.
That's so amazing, man. That's really, really cool. Great to hear. And I bet, like you were saying, it would have been emotional for you and your friends to come and speak, but by you inviting them and them accepting it, that would have been such a massive thing for them as well, right? To be on the film, but to also be vulnerable and express, knowing that they're helping other guys. And when I watch it, it's and you see all the kind of men come together, it hits so much harder when it's like a community based thing, trying to change the culture, like you said. Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah,
There was moments where
Luke Hemsworth.
Sorry, you go.
I was just going to say, and also Luke Hemsworth jumping on board to narrate the film. He seemed to be like all about it and wanted to be a part of it. Amazing.
Yeah, the Luke thing was so quick and easy. Man, I've never met someone of such high profile who is just so easy to deal with and super responsive. Obviously, he has a tie to this community in this world, having lost friends to suicide and dealt with mental health issues, and he was all about it. He gave up his time and wanted to. He took the time to watch a rough cut before committing. Thought it was great and very necessary, and very quickly acted on it to jump on. So we're super grateful for his involvement.
Yeah, amazing, mate, amazing. I've got here, why do you think men struggle to talk or ask for help? Just your take on that.
I think it comes back to just how we, as a society, particularly Australian culture, grew up. You know, people of our age and our generation really grew up in a place where you just got on with things, you got on with it, and you know, our roles as men, or at least the generations, above us, were the providers. They worked, and they worked hard at, any cost, any means necessary to bring home the bacon and provide. And there wasn't much room for, to just unload and speak. And I think part of the problem, in my opinion, is a lot of that load did get unloaded at the pub on a Friday over drinking, and we have a drinking problem in this country, and I think that's another big part. But when you drink, you don't really, open up to your mates. You're just talking shit, and but part of that is healthy. Like, at least that helps. But I think as things have progressed, younger generations coming through, I think as much as I dislike social media, I feel like there is, some good in that. It's opened up a lot of conversations and normalizing speaking. So that idea of what it is to be a man, and getting on with it and whatnot, is definitely shifting. And that's why we made this film. I think the more people can do like big shifts and big conversations and big activations, the more people accept that it's normal. So yeah, there's whole different reasons, but there are a couple that come to mind.
Yeah, for sure. And you mentioned social media there. I kind of felt the same. It's only been the last few years, or mainly since I started this podcast, that I kind of got involved with it. But it's all for the right reasons, because it's amazing. Like for yourself, for example, just being able to reach out, connect, and give you some props, and you appreciate it, and then asking the podcast. I love that, and it helps kind of community. It helps get together and meet other people, and that's the best thing I love about it. Otherwise I probably wouldn't know about the film and yourself and Blakey's story. So yeah, I do like that, and it's a bit of a passion of mine, kind of reaching out and meeting people like yourself, and trying to spread a good message. So yeah, that's awesome. I've got here, I don't have too much left as far as questions go, mate, because I didn't know how long each question would take. But what actually helps men open up, do you think?
I think there's always got to be one in the crew who invites conversation. I think that's important. That's how I've seen it. There's always one who might ask a question. I learnt this thing recently that, by proxy of being in amongst a group, if someone asks someone else if they're okay, that's often met with, yeah, I'm fine. But a third person who might be hearing that conversation might be the one that's actually struggling, and then it won't be till maybe the next day that they come back to that first person who asked the question, saying, hey, I know you asked that person if they were okay. I actually wanted to talk to someone. I'm actually not doing too good. So I think it's open communication, but from at least one person who's willing to do so, and constantly being, I guess, inviting openness and vulnerability. So yeah, look, it's not easy for everyone. I think some people have just grown up certain ways, and they haven't been able to be in other environments that has showed them another way, and that's got to be respected as well. But I think if people can see that, they should be the one tapping on the shoulder, and at the very least, just talking and listening, and having that ability to give someone else the option to open up. So communication is key. Clubs and groups have a responsibility to allow for those moments. Like, I play soccer for Byron Bay FC, and for example, the club have a mental health day every year. The club has lost a few people to suicide over the years, and it's just being conscious in work groups and corporate groups, just allowing platforms to have a space that is not focused on what they normally do, and have this openness to bring invitation to speak. So yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. And I think it brings growth as well, right? Like, so people getting amongst so you said a soccer team or whatever, something out of their comfort zone, or just a small step, and joining and being around some positive people. How do you go with the injuries these days? You hold up all right? Does the body hold up okay?
I can't walk for 2 days after every game. getting on, but I'm just I've got to keep
Yeah.
something consistent up, so I've got something to look forward to. But body's hell sore these days, but I still love it.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, it's annoying when you get an injury as well. I don't know if you're right into your fitness, but I am. Like, I flicked the switch, and you kind of care at this age. Like, oh,
Yeah,
I want to be around for as long as I can for my kid and stuff. And
for sure.
yeah, when you have a bit of an injury, like it sucks. I had like plantar fasciitis under my foot, and I just couldn't run for ages. And kind of gets you down. But I'm back up, baby. I'm getting after it again.
Good on you, man.
Cool, man. I've got here one of okay, so one question. If a man is struggling by saying nothing, what would you say to him? But we have touched on that now, and thinking about it, you could say, or I could say, which is amazing, that you need to watch this film, right? Like what you've created, it's much easier for some men. Again, like you said, they might not be open to getting around other guys and saying how they feel, but it must be so rewarding for you. And again, props to you, man, for making this film, because it is an easy option to be like, hey, you know what, you need to watch this by yourself, 1 hour on the
Mm.
couch, and that has the power to, I reckon, change someone's life for sure. And it's an easy tool to help them change their ways, or to at least ask for help, or to speak up. So yeah, that's I had a big smile, even though it was a very emotional movie. I was just like, this is amazing.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've never really thought of it like that, but it's just like when you introduce a friend to a certain song or an album or a movie or a person. That's what this film is. This film should really be used as a tool, as a almost a business card, to as the
Mm.
next step of how you might be able to take some action. Sometimes men don't want to be talked to. They don't want to be told how they should try and do and fix their things. I think it's noticing that someone might be down and a friend might be down and saying, "Hey, man, I think you'll like this film. You should check it out." And then just letting them experience it in their own time. Like you said, I think that's important too. People need to come to their own conclusions in their own time and not be forced on someone else's schedule. So that's exciting, and I'm hoping that's what happens here, and a lot of people get to share it, and we get to get it into like school curriculums, and it just becomes something that you digest in your own time, and then you might go and speak to who you think you might need to speak to take the next step.
Yeah, amazing, mate. It's actually date night for me and my daughter tonight before I head back to work tomorrow. Yeah, we'll, instead of going out, we'll sit on the couch and I'll watch it again for the third time with some popcorn.
That's awesome. I
Looking
love
forward to her seeing it.
that.
But yeah, like you said, I'll be doing the same, mate. I'll spread the word of it for sure on my page, and I want guys to get around it. And yeah, you should be really proud of that, mate. Congratulations, and good luck with all the film premieres that are coming up. I hope it blows up.
Thanks, mate, and thank you for everything you're doing. And yeah, man, it takes a couple of good people to just consistently do this kind of stuff and make other people realize that we're not in this alone, and we're all having a good crack, and life is good.
For sure, bro. All right. Well, that ran shorter than what it needed to, but hey, there's no fluff. It's all meaningful stuff, and so we'll wrap it up. Thanks so much again, mate. I appreciate your time, and I'll hopefully speak to you soon.
Likewise, brother. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to that episode of Up and Atom. If you or someone you know is struggling, please call Lifeline on 13 11 14 or text 0477 13 11 14 or 13 yarn 1392 76 for First Nations peoples. If life is in danger, call 000 immediately. Thank you.